Let's talk about what we leave behind. You might notice my voice is a little bit different today because yesterday I unloaded some straw, and straw is my kryptonite for my allergies. But what we leave behind is a story that I want to talk about that kind of triggered my growth journey. And it's an odd place for it to come from, but I want to talk about it today and share where that genesis came from. So in 2014, Jay Leno had just left The Tonight Show for the second time. And I'm watching the farewell episode. I've always been a Jay Leno fan. I've always admired him for his work, his character, and how he just leaded himself and became a good person that wanted to do good for others. And all of these people came out to celebrate and show thanks for Jay being in their life. And what that did for me was it opened up this question of, I don't think anybody's going to do anything close to that for me. And I don't think, other than my close family, when I'm gone, there won't be anything but just dust and the dirt that I'm returned back to. And that was kind of a dark thought to have. It was kind of, what do you go from here when you think there's going to be nobody there at the end of your life to really say anything nice, that you did anything impactful with others? But it was that moment, that question, that really started making me dig deeper. Now, if you know my story, in 2014 is also when I dropped out of school. February 6th is when he said his farewell on The Tonight Show. That was just a month after I had dropped out of college. And so this was kind of a dark time in my life because I really had to do some soul searching. Because what do you do when everything you put your effort towards, like a degree, just goes away? Where do you go next? What do you do? And so, again, when Jay Leno left The Tonight Show, all of these people, he talked about how his family was the cast, because early in his life and the career of The Tonight Show, he lost his family, his brother, and he didn't have anybody. And his Tonight Show became his family. There was this aspect of that storytelling that really hit me to the core. And it really triggered this question of, what will I leave behind? Now, I don't want to just leave you with that dark question, because there was some other good questions that came from it. Because when I looked at what will I leave behind, I realized I don't think anything other than my kids. Now, I wasn't even inspired or wise enough to even understand that my kids are ultimately what I leave behind. If I leave good kids, that will be my legacy. I hadn't had that thought yet. But within this moment, a couple other questions came in my life over the next 6 months. And one of them that really transpired and changed a lot of things was, if you want a result in your life you've never had, then you need to do something you've never done. Now, in the context of this in The Tonight Show, it was really this question that opened up like, wow, how did I get here? How do I get to somewhere else where I want to go? And that question of, if I want a result in my life I've never had, I need to do something I've never done. That question allowed me to access the idea that I don't have any friends. Because one, in order to have anything like Jay Leno happen, I have to have friends to be able to care that I was here to help, to support them, to do something that is worthy enough for them to come back and say something positive. But at the same time, it's still hard to answer that question. So when I looked at that question, friendship was almost right in the surface very quickly. But then I had to ask, like, okay, well, why don't I have friends? Because it's been this theme since high school, that I just never had good friends. And it came to me pretty quickly once I started like diving into like going back to high school and be like, well, why didn't I do anything back then? Well, ultimately what I came to was every person I would talk to was that high school girl that said no when I asked her out. And that just created this freeze moment of like, yeah, that was a horrible moment. Let's just never go back there. Let's never go back to that rejected moment in time where we felt rejected. And so you should just apply that rule to everybody. That's how essentially how my subconscious applied that lesson. Now, I had no idea that I was doing this. I didn't consciously think every time I wanted to say hello that every person was that high school girl. But that's essentially what I came up with. And it was again, this Genesis moment and this question that allowed me to dig deeper and to have the courage to finally say hello to dads at the park. Because when I said hello to dads at the park, that ultimately led me to this idea that, wow, if you say hello to dads at the park, you can get a deeper insight into who you are. The third dad I talked to was a veteran, and I was like, wow, did that just work? Like, it was almost, I didn't believe it of how easy it was to meet another veteran that I had never known. And they were living in our own subdivision right under my nose. And it was, again, this moment that transcended all of the growth that I have in my life today came from this pit of watching Jay Leno close out his life, mic drop it, realize I don't got anything close to what Jay has, and realizing that I need to do something about it. So I hope this story helps maybe illuminate something in your life. Probably maybe brought you to a little bit of a deep place when you asked that question for your own life. But hopefully, like my life, that you can find the genesis for where maybe you went wrong. And then also find the course correction where you need to go right. And find out how do you change that. Because this is the other thing. It's not permanent what we feel or what we do. We always have the ability to make new choices. We always have the ability to write new endings. You just have to illuminate, have the courage, start taking action and doing something different that you did yesterday, today. I'll be back again with you guys tomorrow.